Another group of people is stripped of its weapons with tragic consequences. From the first arrival of Europeans on North American shores, relations between whites and natives, called Indians, have been uneasy. As settlers push further into Indian lands, the situation boils. Each side commits and accuses the other of committing atrocities. In 1864, U.S. Army troops gunned down 150 Cheyenne and Arapaho members at Sand Creek in Colorado Territory. Most of the dead are women, children, and old people. Inevitably, the better armed whites overpower the tribes. Near the end of the century, desperate Indians of many tribes adopt a new religion. They believe if they perform a certain ritual, called the ghost dance, the whites will be magically swept away. In late 1890, the ghost dance sweeps the reservations of the Lakota Sioux. Whites fear the Lakota are planning a war and try to force the ghost dancers to halt. Although many Sioux give up their religion, some bands refuse. The army is called in to transport the ghost dancers out of the territory. In December 1890, the last band of dancers is pinned at Wounded Knee Creek. Ordered by the army, they hand over a few dozen rifles. But believing the whites plan to kill them, young men hide weapons. While the soldiers search the camp, a medicine man begins the ghost dance. The soldiers think he is giving a signal to attack. Somewhere in the band of Indians, someone discharges a rifle. The army opens fire. The battle is over after just 10 minutes of heavy fire. But soldiers pursue the retreating Indians and gun down everyone they find. The bodies of women, babies, and old men are scattered as much as 3 miles from the battlefield. When governments fear the people, disarmament often follows. The law may target one group, but other individuals pay the consequences. World War II. President Roosevelt issues an executive order authorizing the War Department to exclude any and all persons from vast military zones. The order doesn't identify any group, but everyone understands it means people of Japanese ancestry. Of the 110,000 who are rounded up and sent to camps, more than 2/3 are American citizens. They have committed no crimes. Being citizens doesn't protect them. They are disarmed as enemy aliens. Ironically, the U.S. government soon recruits young Japanese American men from these camps. And the young men go on to become part of one of the most highly decorated infantry regiments to fight in World War II. Some German and Italian Americans are also taken to camps without being accused of any crime. Those imprisoned include American-born children. Like the Japanese, those sent to camps are disarmed. Some U.S. citizens are even deported to Germany. When they have defense tools equal to those of attackers, people have the power to protect themselves. Once powerless, people can fall victim to any aggressor at any time. October 16, 1991, a bright, sunny day in Killeen, Texas, a crowded coffee shop. Young Dr. Susanna Gracia is lunching with her parents. She often carries a sidearm for self-defense, but today she has left the gun in her car in the parking lot because it is illegal for her to keep the weapon in her purse. She's afraid she'll lose her license to practice if she's caught with it. Susanna Gracia is about to lose something much more precious. A truck crashes through the window. A man leaps out. and methodically begins shooting customers to death. Susanna reaches for her purse. Then she remembers. Self-defense is 100 feet away, and the police can't come for endless minutes. Susanna can only watch and then scramble desperately through a window as her father and mother are murdered. 23 people die on a bright, sunny noon at Luby's cafeteria. On the early morning of August 23, 2000, the children of John and Tephany Carpenter are alone in their rural California home. All 5 Carpenter children know how to shoot, but California law requires that guns be locked away from children. With her sisters and brothers still in bed, 14-year-old Jessica enters the family kitchen, where a half-naked stranger awaits her with a pitchfork. The stranger has barricaded the doors and windows. He has cut the phone line. There is nothing to stop him. Stalking down the hallway, he begins stabbing 13-year-old Anna. Youngest sister Ashley, just 9 years old, leaps into the hall and draws the madman away. Horribly wounded, Ashley dives at his legs, screaming for her sisters to go, go, go. The girls all think of the gun, but they can't use it to save Ashley or their little brother. The 3 oldest girls escape. They rush to a neighbor's house and plead for his rifle, but the neighbor says no, saying the government would take his gun away. By the time police arrive, Ashley is dead from 138 pitchfork wounds to her face, chest, and neck. 7-year-old John William also lies dead, stabbed 46 times. Once people accept being disarmed, they become surprisingly easy to control and to kill. They have surrendered not only their weapons, but their independence.
Some may consider the position of this film a little extreme. They may think that the idea of personal self-defense against a killer government is an extreme idea. But in fact, if you look at the history of the world, and certainly the history of the 20th century, you look at the nations where the people had power, they weren't persecuted by their own government. If you look at the nations where the people didn't have power, they were subject to persecution. And in genocide after genocide in this film, we show exactly how that took place. This film does have a message. It has a moral of the story, as it were. It's a connection of 3 ideas: betrayal of trust, vicious cowardice, and powerlessness of victims. Any individual who acts in some way to try to stop people from protecting themselves, any individual who would work to disarm people, and oftentimes that's known as gun control, the idea that a person should not have the tools to defend themselves. Anyone who is willing to be part of the process of rendering the citizens defenseless is to blame. The Founding Fathers fully expected that Americans would be prepared at all times to fight a government. When the government becomes the enemy of the people, the Founding Fathers fully expected that the people would rise up against that government. It's right there in the literature. Alexander Hamilton wrote about it in Federalist Paper number 29. James Madison, considered the father of our Constitution, wrote about it in Federalist Paper number 46. They expressly expected that people would take to arms and stop a government that went too far. So they built into the Constitution, the Second Amendment, to be sure that Americans would never become the disarmed subjects of this government, to make sure this government never became a killer government, and to make sure that the scenes we saw in this film never could take place in America. Every American, maybe everyone in the world, but every American who has any interest at all in the future of a free nation, of a safe nation, of a prosperous nation, should also be a person who is interested in how to preserve that kind of nation. And the way to preserve that is to never give anybody more power than the people have. The warning sign on the horizon now is this drift in America and in Western civilization to downplaying the importance of self-defense, the downplaying that key value. And that's what this film is trying to get across, is that self-defense is the job of the individual. It's not the job of the authorities all the time. The individual ultimately has the duty and the right. And as we see Western civilization moving away from that, trying to centralize the defense of the society and take away the power from the people to do that, this movie shows the history of what happens to people who've been rendered powerless.